For someone who is as fascinated and interested in death as I am, this book is a gem. It's a relic from the past that is priceless. There are no other words to describe it. My initial feelings are just that of privilege and being lucky enough to get to read it and understand it. And I'm still reeling from the fact that such rich history from a time so long ago is still preserved in today's museums. The oldest story known to man, written in cuneiform script. Can you imagine how incredible it is that people have studied this, deciphered it, and found meaning in it? Countless books, philosophies, religions are based on stories written here. The Bible, most of Homer's works, the Iliad, Odysseus, any hero's journey per se is inspired from this. That is just incredible to comprehend. Some conservative estimates put the date of writing of this story to be 2000 BCE, although the story itself might be older than that date. And it shows in the text because the way it is written is weird to say the least. The language is blunt, in your face. A major event is described in two or three lines, let's say. I've never seen that before. The use of repetition is also very interesting to show the passage of time. Sometimes it gets tiring to read the same thing over and over, but there is a reason it's written like that. And the story ends abruptly, which leaves you with an unsettling feeling. Here's a quick excerpt on the discovery and the decipherment of the tablet itself. Quote, a young English traveller named Henry Leonard heard that there were antiquities buried in the mounds of what is now the city of Mosul, began excavations in 1844. These mounds turned out to contain the ruined palaces of Nineveh, the ancient capital of Assyria, including what was left of the library of the last great Assyrian king Ashurbanipal. In amazement, Leonard and his assistant Hormuz Rassam found room after room lined with carved stone bas-reliefs of demons and deities, scenes of battle, royal hunts, and ceremonies, doorways flanked by enormous winged bulls and lions, and inside some of the chambers tens of thousands of clay tablets inscribed with the curious and then undeciphered cuneiform, wedge-shaped script. Over 25,000 of these tablets were shipped back to the British Museum. End quote. You can see the palpable excitement in the discovery and the enormous magnitude of it. Be that as it may, considering it's a historic text, I have to thank Dan Carlin for again providing some very necessary context. I only heard of these Assyrian kings, Ashurbanipal, Nineveh, these places in Turkey that are mentioned, modern day Iraq, Iran, over and over, Euphrates, the river, Tigris, I believe is the other one, Lebanon is mentioned. All of these I was able to visualize because of Dan Carlin's great episodes on this empire. Okay, enough of the context. Let's get into the story itself, which is in itself very interesting. You can imagine how it is set up. We have a hero figure or an anti-hero figure, if you will, in Gilgamesh, the best of men. Again, all the positive, desirable traits you want in a man, you'll find in him. And here, I'm doing double quotes with my hands when I say man. You have arrogance, great body, power, unimaginable power, divinity. He is said to be two-thirds divine and one-thirds animal. So you have this figure on one end and Enkidu on the other hand, who again is introduced very interestingly. You use this woman Shamhat to seduce this wild man Enkidu into civilization so as to take away his purity or his connection with nature, let's say. So that says something about the culture of the time where they view women as distractions who take away man's life force. So that is a subplot or a subtext going on. And Enkidu is shown to be enraged by the fact that the king, Gilgamesh, gets to sleep with every woman he wants before marriage. Imagine this scene. Any couple gets married in the great city of Uruk. The bridegroom has to stand on the side and the bride has to wait for the king to mate with her before the actual husband can then continue on with their life. So he sees this and he feels some sort of injustice. There is an unimaginable amount of anger in him and he goes to confront Gilgamesh about it, and they fight this war of attrition amongst themselves, and by the end they are the best of friends where they recognize each other's powers. And I don't know if it's a decision to join forces, but they know each other so well because of it that that is the only course of action left. And that's what I had written in point 7, where the way it is described, their connection between Enkidu and Gilgamesh is there's just one line. It says they become true friends. That one line has to convey so much depth. They are not lovers, they are something more. They are one almost in soul and body. They are so inseparable. And to convey such a heavy feeling, the poet or author uses just one line: they became true friends. So this is the kind of prose that I was talking about. They don't spend many passages or pages explaining how they get each other and how they help each other and learn from each other. It's just one line and you're supposed to get all of that from this one line, that they became the best of friends. Incredible. Quote: part of the fascination of Gilgamesh is that, like any great work of literature, it has much to tell us about ourselves in giving voice to grief and the fear of death, perhaps more powerfully than any book written after it, in portraying love and vulnerability and the quest for wisdom. It has become a personal testimony for millions of readers in dozens of languages. End quote. So we have this great friendship between the two people, and then come the time for adventure. First they go to the cedar forest where they kill Hambaba. Then they battle with the bull of heaven, I think that's what it's called, and they insult the Ishtar goddess. That reminded me of Circe from the Odysseus story by Homer. So it's interesting how you can see the parallels drawn from this to Homer or even to Buddha. Again, there is somehow this feeling in me that I have to read the originals unabridged and I have to understand what the author meant all by myself. But if there was no context to this given by the translator here, I don't think I would have seen the parallels between Circe and Ishtar, maybe. And I wouldn't have caught the parallels between him and Buddha also. The way they go into adventure is almost like Buddha, upon leaving his quiet comforts in a palace and going down this path of enlightenment. But just like the translator explained here, and just like Buddha did, Enkidu and Gilgamesh don't have any reasons to go on this adventure, but maybe the heart wants more. Maybe we aren't as comfortable in familiarity as we'd like to think, and we want fame and we want men to celebrate us, and for that I have to do something valiant, so I create problems for myself when there are none. So Gilgamesh and Enkidu leave for the cedar forest and to kill the bull because they want fame, or at least Gilgamesh wants fame, and Enkidu is trapped by Gilgamesh's feelings because they are one again. So very interesting parallels, and also how towards the end Gilgamesh has to travel this long tunnel, dark tunnel that signifies rebirth and going through trials and tribulations of life, just like Buddha did in his journeys, and just like Odysseus does on his way back to Ithaca after the Trojan War. Very interesting how all of these hero stories take this journey full of troubles, and in the end they come out on top enlightened with a better understanding. Very interesting. They always return with this wisdom of how to live life that life teaches them, or the characters that they meet through their journeys say in no less words. For example, Shiduri and Utnapishtim, who hold the secrets of eternal life or the process of defeating death, they don't give you a magic potion. They don't, again, tell you some secrets that you didn't know already. Here is an excerpt, for example, that Shiduri says, quote, "Savor your food, make each of your days a delight, bathe and anoint yourself, wear bright clothes that are sparkling, clean, let music and dancing fill your house, love the child who holds you by the hand, and give your wife pleasures in your embrace. That is the best way for a man to live." End quote. You can see how even after Enkidu's death, after all the effort that Gilgamesh has taken to go find the cure for death and the potion of immortality, he finds this. I'm sure I would be disappointed if someone told me this after everything I went through, but maybe that is the solution after all. The plant that Utnapishtim gives him after all of it, maybe that is supposed to signify something, that you cannot avoid death, but you have to go on these adventures and find yourself, and in that way you are living a full life. You are living a life that is as good as immortal because you have these experiences that transcend time and space. And it's not like Gilgamesh doesn't know this. He says, even before leaving on this journey to Enkidu, quote, "Only the gods live forever. Our days are few in number, and whatever we achieve is a puff of wind. Why be afraid then, since sooner or later death must come? Where is the courage you have always had?" End quote. Really, Gilgamesh? Why did you go all through all these troubles then if you knew that your days are numbered? Ah, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. It's important to mention the Great Flood. Although I didn't care much for it, I'm not Christian, so it didn't have much of an effect on me. But it's interesting to see how the myth of the Great Flood precedes the Bible itself by a couple millennia. If millennia is 1,000 years, I'm not sure of that as well. But very interesting how, again, it clearly shows that the Bible itself took inspiration from these stories, and they have to make it larger than life. That is, again, made clear in no uncertain terms. The people are, Gilgamesh, for example, is said to be 9 feet tall. They walk for days on end without rest. Really, that's not how people live. That's not something physically possible. You can't carry 300 logs. People don't die when they swim in water. But all of this happens to give an illusion of fear, or to say that things that people did are larger than life. So take it metaphorically, if you will. None of this happened in actuality, or maybe a version of it did, but don't take it too literally. A good example of this is how Hambaba is portrayed as someone as the protector of the forest. We don't know if he was an actual figure or an animal or anything. Maybe he's just an image in our head. Maybe he's the plants and animals that live in the forest. And Enkidu and Gilgamesh, that they just lived in the forest, suffering through all of the different poisonous plants and dangerous animals, let's say. And when they were able to overcome that in their own minds, is when they defeated Hambaba in their minds. And that is how it is portrayed in the stories as well. And I have to appreciate the translator here because he also imagines a present life where we use some of this imagery, demons and goddesses, to protect our own national forests and Amazon ecosystems, let's say. Very interesting. I had a good chuckle at that. It's not that the book is trite or bland, there is much humor in it. I also recall how when Gilgamesh meets with Utnapishtim, he says that I would imagine you to be some sort of god, but you look like me. How did that happen? Very interesting. I liked all of those sections in the book. There is abundant humor. There is a section where Gilgamesh, I don't know, chides Ishtar. I don't know if Ishtar is the right name or I'm thinking of someone else, but it's basically the figure who marries many men and even some animals because her love is supposed to be beyond gender. I think that's how it is portrayed. And how Gilgamesh chides her with how how she mistreated all of those people after their relationship was over. Very interesting, very funny. It's incredible how female promiscuity is also showed. When Shamat sees Enkidu at first, for example, or when someone else sees Gilgamesh and they say that her loins caught fire. Very interesting, how very interesting that that's how they depict it. They were much more open about sexual wellness and needs and desires, I guess, of women at that time. We have definitely taken a fall there. But again, very interesting and enjoyable. One final point that I wanted to mention before we end this review, I wanted to make a quick note of the fact that how Gilgamesh sees Uruk and its people changes over time. Initially, he is very rude to them, he is a tyrant. He doesn't see the beauty surrounding him. But as he goes through the hardships and meets different people and has all the experiences, and then he looks back on Uruk. He says, look at Uruk, this great city, stand on its walls, look at its staircases and all. I feel like he somehow changes his perception on how he sees things around him. He's much more grateful, much more appreciative of the beauty surrounding him. And that's a lesson that we all should take. And luckily for us, we don't have to go through the hardships because we can read about them. But that is just to say that take a walk, look at the things around you, look at the trees, look at the different animals around you, look at the birds. You don't need money, a well-paying job, or anything to feel happy or content. You just need to take a walk, appreciate the beauty around you that you have neglected for so long. And isn't that the ultimate secret of eternal life? That is the purpose of the journey we are all on. And if you are told that this is the secret, then I think we should take it very seriously and actively work towards it. So, just as a closing thought, appreciate the beauty around you. You don't have to go through all the hardships, I believe. You can do it right now. So that was my review of the entire book. Again, like I said in the beginning, I feel incredibly lucky that something so valuable was preserved and translated for us to enjoy. So you should also read this one in particular, the oldest story in the world, and rightfully so. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you do too. Thank you for listening.